Hi, I'm Kenneth, and welcome to my channel. Getting to financial independence wasn't my main goal, but to allow me the time and space to focus on self-improvement, health, time management, and discovering the journey towards happiness. Since I achieved my financial independence, I have read many books to expand my knowledge and to learn from others who may have found part of the answers. These 5 books are my favorite and changed my life and my perspective. If you are at the stage where you're looking for the same answers, these books may be for you. Before I begin, if you like this content, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting new videos here each week. The first 2 books are The Courage to be Disliked and its sequel, The Courage to be Happy by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. These 2 books demonstrate how to unlock the power within yourself to be the person you truly want to be. Using the theories of Alfred Adler, one of the 3 giants of the 19th century psychology, alongside Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. The books follow an illuminating conversation between a philosopher and a young man. The philosopher explains to his pupil how each of us is able to determine our own lives, free of shackles of the past experiences, doubts, and expectations of others. It's a way of thinking that's deeply liberating, allowing us to develop the courage to change and to ignore the limitations that we place on ourselves. Some of the core lessons are: the path towards happiness is the fulfillment of our life tasks, which is to be self-reliant and to live in harmony with society in 3 categories: work, friendship, and love. The first book focuses more on work and friendship, while the second book focuses on how to be self-reliant, love, and the parent-child or teacher-student relationship. Hence, it will be important to read both books to cover the entire teaching. What I enjoy about these 2 books is they are easy to understand, with many real-life examples to illustrate the key points. It also provides a clear roadmap towards a joyful life and how to overcome many of our common frustrations. These are some of the wisdom from the books. 1. The past does not matter. We are free to create our own future and free to assign meanings to our lives without the burden of our past. 2. Being unhappy is a personal choice due to the lack of courage to make the necessary changes and to face the unknown. It is easier for most people to live according to norms, follow others, or live on autopilot mode, as one does not have to think about difficult things, and one does not have to take responsibility for our own failure. These are called lifelines, which are excuses we create subconsciously to keep ourselves in the unhappy status quo. Third, it is central to Adlerian psychology that we need to believe in the separation of tasks, which is we are only responsible for our own actions, thoughts, and emotions. How others behave and react is not our task. This gives a lot of relief to know that what others think or do is not our task and should not have a bearing on our well-being. Fourth, to be self-reliant is to break away from self-centeredness. One has to break away from one's pampered childhood lifestyle, from an I want and entitled attitude towards contributing genuinely to others and being useful to society. Being self-centered is likely the biggest obstacle for most of us not being able to find true happiness. Fifth, the secret to happiness is to contribute to others in a genuine way. It doesn't matter if others accept or recognize the contribution for us to feel this happiness. For most people, our job is one of the easiest ways to contribute and be useful to the community. When we feel demotivated from our job, it's important to look deeper into how our job can contribute to others, and we can always find value in any job, or it will no longer exist. The second book offers guidance in being a good parent and equip the child with the right attitude and avoid the danger of being a rebel. It builds on respect for the separation of tasks and offers a path towards self-reliance. Finally, we need to recognize that every relationship is limited and has a start and an end. It gives us comfort that it is okay when the relationship ends, and we should not feel depressed or frustrated. It is fully in our control to start new relationships to replace those that have ended. We only need the courage to take the first step. The third book that changed my life is Your Brain at Work by David Rock. To improve work performance and better manage our lives, it helps to understand how our brain functions. What are the limitations and the optimal conditions? In this book, David Rock structured the contents like a play with 4 acts covering the lives of 2 career parents and how understanding the brain works can deliver much greater results and happiness. I find Act 1 and 3 the most useful. In Act 1, This section demonstrates one of the best ways to improve our mental performance is to understand the limits. It starts by introducing our prefrontal cortex, which sits behind our forehead and is critical for 5 key functions: understanding, deciding, recalling, memorizing, and inhabiting. It is very important in our cognitive ability to know what are the limitations. The prefrontal cortex can only hold limited information at a time and can be overwhelmed and confused if we try to hold too much information at once. The optimal number of items to hold and do a comparison effectively is only 2. Our ability to use our prefrontal cortex is limited, as easily distracted and needs lots of concentration to complete our tasks. The more we use our prefrontal cortex, the weaker it becomes, and we often need to rest and re-energize to perform well again, or the accuracy will suffer. The key to optimal performance is to prioritize to do what's important and not what's easy. Simplify our tasks by breaking them down into manageable parts, remove as much distraction around us, and recognize signs that we need a rest to recharge. In Act 3, another important lesson is to be aware of our limbic system and how easily we can feel anxiety, especially in a work environment. When our limbic system picks up signs that we feel threatened, it will trigger the fight or flight mode, and we will be unable to perform at our best. This is very helpful for people managers in a work environment to recognize them, or you will not be able to have a collaborative team as basic needs are being threatened. I use this framework during my corporate life, and it helps to create a team which are positive and collaborative. This framework is called the SCARF model, which highlights the 5 threat responses. They are status, our relative importance to others. It's often perceived as a threat when a more senior person in the workplace communicates with you. Certainty, our ability to predict the future. Autonomy, our sense of control over events. Do we have the empowerment over our tasks, or are we being micromanaged? Relatedness, how safe we feel with others. Can we trust our team members and colleagues? Fairness, how fair we are being treated. For example, if a restructuring in the organization is on the horizon, it will immediately trigger the certainty domain, and we will not be able to function effectively and imagine likely negative outcomes. It is very important for the manager to calm the team members by sharing as much information and updates as possible to remove this uncertainty. I have also shared a link to David Rock's speech in the description below. The next book is Digital Minimalism by Newport. It brought awareness to the danger of smartphones and social media. Many of these technologies are focusing on getting our attention and more time spent on their products so they can sell more ads. And it's arguably far worse than smoking. As the saying goes, Philip Morris just wanted your lungs, but the App Store wants your soul. The tech companies encourage such behavior addictions through 2 of our primitive natural responses. They are intermediate positive reinforcement and the drive for social approval. B.F. Skinner's famous experiments with pigeons demonstrate how intermediate positive reinforcement works. Pigeon will pick a button to release a food pellet. If the food pellet is released at random, the pigeon will pick far more often than those with a known pattern.
The pigeon was studied in a uniform box, one it quickly grew used to. One piece of behaviour, pecking a coloured disc, was measured on a graph. The pigeon learned that pecking the disc produced a reward. Then the behaviour of pecking could be studied in relation to how often that reward was offered, or in Skinner's terms, what was the schedule of reinforcement.
The main thing is what we call schedules of reinforcement. Reinforcement is what the layman calls reward, and you can schedule it so that a reward occurs every now and then when a pigeon does something. We usually use a response with a pigeon pecking a little disc, a little spot in the wall, and you can reinforce with food, but you don't reinforce every time. Perhaps every 10th time, or perhaps only once every minute or something like that. There are a very large number of schedules, and they have their special effects. And there is a good example of how you can move from the pigeon to the human case, because one of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, And that is at the heart of all gambling devices and has the same effect. A pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. Now, the fact that we found that out with pigeons and could prove it by removing and changing the schedule makes it easy for us to interpret the case with the human subject. We don't say that the human subject gambles to punish himself, as the Freudians might say, or gambles because he feels excited when he does so. Nothing of the sort. People gamble because of the schedule of the reinforcement that follows, and this is true of all gambling systems. They all have variable ratios built into them.
This is the same basic behavior as the feedback or notification that social media send to the user, and is by design to get the user to engage with the app as often as possible, and often lead to addiction unknowingly. Second driver is social approval. The famous like button on Facebook is a great example. It is designed to encourage the user to seek more likes, as our natural behavior to seek social acceptance and be part of community. Our limbic brain system cannot differentiate between the importance of the person in the room or the person who just liked our Facebook post. The opposite is also true. When we didn't get a like or receive negative comments, we will feel anxious and unable to concentrate on our normal activities as it hijacks our focus. We will likely feel threatened as our limbic system may take it as a signal for social rejection. With these dangers surrounding us, it's important to reduce our addiction to these services and mobile phones. The book offers a 30 days digital declutter process to reduce our mobile phone usage as much as possible and to revert each service to a tool instead of function as a toy. We will also need to find new and more valuable habits to fill this newfound time to avoid a relapse. I have significantly reduced my anxiety and spent more time on valuable activities such as reading after putting these tips into practice. The fifth book which changed my life is Lifespan by Dr. David Sinclair. He shared the science behind aging through what he called the information theory.
Epigenome. If you haven't heard of the epigenome, think of it like this. We have DNA. I'm showing you it as a blue strand. It's digital information, A, T, C, G. There's 4 bases. It's base 4. It's not base 2 or binary. The epigenome is not digital. It's mostly analog. And anyone who's old enough to have had an analog device, whether it's a tape recorder or a record player or record, these things get disrupted. They get scratched. It's very bad, very poor at copying information. And that's true for the epigenome as well. Copying epigenetic information doesn't work that well. What is the epigenome? It's the structures that wrap up the DNA and say that this gene A should be on in a brain cell, but in a liver cell should be off. And this gene B should be off in a skin cell, but should be on in a kidney. That's the epigenome, and largely it's due to the 3-dimensional structures of the folding of DNA. And these sirtuins that defend us are called silent information regulators. That's what sirtuins actually stand for, SIR. And 2 is the number 2 for the first gene in yeast that we showed extended lifespan way back in Lenny Garanti's lab at MIT in the 1990s. But here's the analogy, that the DNA is the digital information on a compact disc. Those of us who are old enough know what that is. For the youngsters, this is what we used to store 20 songs on. It was great technology. That's your genome, the digital information. The epigenome is the reader, and it can read different songs depending on different parts of the body and different cell types. But what I believe is causing aging is the skipping of those songs, skipping of the reader. And what makes songs skip? Scratches. So aging is essentially scratches on a compact disc that makes the music skip. And eventually, cells, by reading the wrong genes, skipping the wrong genes, lose their ability to fight against disease. They lose their function. We get dementia, we get heart disease, we get cancer, we get frailty. That is aging.
Dr. Sinclair shared we can reduce the effects of aging by boosting a coenzyme called NAD, as the levels plummet to half of our youth level by middle age. This can be done by taking a precursor called the NMN. He also recommends lower our blood glucose through fasting to increase recovery and repair, and activate our natural defense pathway called the AMPK. It brings a new perspective to better health and reduces age-related diseases such as cancer, diabetics, and dementia. I've also linked his podcast in the description below, which covers the same content as the book. I hope you find these 5 books useful. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.